Welcome to the Dynasty Roundtable podcast. My name is Seth Ewald. That is Matt Babich. We are here just about every week, sometimes twice a week, and we are here to break down all things Dynasty. Today, we are going to be breaking down Dynasty stashes that you need to make, late round targets in your Dynasty League, and the definition that we came up with. And let us know what you think of it in the chat. 20th round or later, according to Dynasty Data Lab. We thought about using sleeper rostership percentages, but in my opinion, those are kind of wacky. And there are some real sicko leagues out there where you have 35, 40 roster spots, 50 roster spots even. So kind of skews things a little bit. So we just thought, no, let's use ADP. And I want to ask you, when you were coming up with this list, how did it go for you? Did you find this as easy as you found the sleepers list, or was it a little bit more challenging?
No, this, at the risk of sounding conceited, this was once again easy. Because there are a lot of players on your list that I also considered as well. So it was exactly like the sleepers. I scanned through Dynasty Data Labs and, here's 20 different people that I really like. The late round is filled with a lot of promise and opportunity. That's, kind of the point. You get a lot of people that try and draft like the dusty veterans like DeAndre Hopkins, thinking that that's going to help them potentially win now, when really it's taking a shot on a bunch of the different guys that we're going to talk about today, guys that are going to become something, guys that are on the upward trajectory of their career, not players that you are praying finds the end zone so they can salvage a 10-point week en route to, maybe their last career season for DeAndre Hopkins or players like that. So I had a pretty good time coming up with this list. I did start trying to go off of the rostership, and I had to text you because, man, there's no good website, at least none that I know of, to search for that. So you kind of just have to search for players' names and see what pops up. And I searched for a player unnamed now that will come up on this list. And I know that if I asked any of my casual Dynasty friends who this player was, they would all say, I have no idea. I've never heard of him before in my life. But fantasy Twitter has been talking him up for months. So that's where I think I agree with you, because that player also has a 71% rostership on Sleeper. So there are a lot of sickos on Sleeper, because I couldn't believe that an undrafted free agent is at 71% rostership on Sleeper.
Yeah, it definitely, I've always found, because I've made videos like that before. I've used that as my benchmark, 50% or less, so you can actually add these guys. But I do think that there's some merit to extending the definition a little bit, even extending it to 20th round or later, because it all depends on what format you're playing in. If you're playing in the FFPC leagues, you can only roster 20 guys, and that you have to cut down to 16 at the start of the season. I had one FFPC league, and I was only in it for a couple years. Didn't like the format, so I gave it up. I like the deeper rosters, but you can go from that to, like we talked about, some of the more sicko leagues out there where there's 40, 50 roster spots or something crazy like that. In the Dynasty Roundtable League, we have 28 roster spots. Start 10, I think. It's either 10 or 11. It might be more. It might be actually start 12 now that I think about it. I should probably know the settings to my own league. But nevertheless, let's go ahead and kick this off. And I'm going to kick it to you first because I don't know. I'm just feeling gracious tonight. So
thank you.
Tell me about which sleeper do you want to start, or which stash rather, not sleeper. We've already talked about sleepers. Which stash do you want to start with?
So the stash that I want to start with is Malik Washington. Call me Will Smith, because we're going to Miami for my first stash, and it's Malik Washington. That would have been a much better transition. But Malik Washington is transitioning into a bigger role in this offense. He is listed per our lads as the starting slot receiver. I think that makes sense based on how he was introduced into the offense, especially over the last few weeks of the season, where he was getting 5 targets a game over the last 3 weeks. Didn't turn it into much because that offense was anemic. It was struggling. But big thing that happened this offseason, the departure of Jonnu Smith. And that short area, sort of gimmicky kind of receiving role now opens up, and that's perfect for Malik Washington. We've talked in previous podcasts about not wanting to overwork a guy like Devon Achane, hyper talented, a little bit on the smaller side. This is somebody you want to keep fresh. And while it helps expand his role with Jonnu's departure, he can't fill that entire void. Nor can Darren Waller. I don't know how you feel, Seth, about Darren Waller coming out of retirement and how effective he will be for Miami. I tend to think that when push comes to shove, Malik Washington's going to be the one, or, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. One of those 3 out of the slot is going to be getting those touches as opposed to Darren Waller. Just doesn't seem like he is fit to take on that role. I could be wrong, but Malik Washington playing out of the slot, very athletic, 74th percentile straight line speed. He is on the smaller side at 5'9", 190, but he has incredible burst, 97th percentile. Last year, had that short area roll, about 5-yard ADOT, and what he was able to do was generate yards after the catch. It was roughly, almost 5 yards after the catch per reception. And on a route running basis, when you look at some of his yards per route run and other metrics on Player Profiler and other sites, they're not going to look great because his usage rate wasn't fantastic. But as the year went on, he finished 15 through 18 with 6, 4, 5, 5 targets and 1 game over 10 fantasy points. So he cracked into the top 40 receivers once. We kind of saw that role blossom, and in an offense we expect to take a step forward and maybe rely a little bit less on Tyreek Hill, have to disperse the ball in other ways. I see them getting Malik Washington involved, particularly because the only addition they made to this core of receivers was adding Nick Westbrook-Akine, who's more of an outside big body, red zone type of target, and is a, complete difference from what Malik Washington brings to the table. And Mike McDaniel and team said, we're good with this role.
Yeah, I really like the profile. Malik Washington was one of these guys. I think John Love talked about him and how much he liked him coming into that draft out of the University of Virginia. And he's fast. The body type is very new age NFL at 5 feet 9 or 10, $190. Best comparable player on Player Profiler is Zay Flowers. That's high praise. I don't know if he's that good because I really like Zay Flowers coming out of school and kind of wish he would have landed in a more pass happy, friendly offense. But I like it. I like this a lot. And it's really going to come down to what's Tyreek Hill going to look like in this offense this year? Is he going to be vintage Tyreek Hill, or is he going to be 30-plus-year-old guy who doesn't have what he used to have in the tank left? Because that could go either direction, and that's what makes Tyreek Hill a really scary redraft pick for me, at least. And to answer the Darren Waller question, I just finished up my projections for redraft, and I have Darren Waller at tight end 24, right behind Dallas Goedert and right ahead of Mason Taylor. So yes, I am not very optimistic on Darren Waller's ability, A, to stay healthy coming out of retirement, or B, to just take that Jonnu Smith role that we saw last year. I don't see it happening. I think Malik Washington has a much better chance to absorb that kind of role in the offense. Let's move to my first pick. And we've talked about this player before. It is Will Shipley. And we have heard, I feel like this offseason we've heard it mentioned ad nauseum. Oh, Saquon Barkley, he can't replicate that kind of workload. And we have a lot of people have concerns about that. A lot of people at Fantasy Pros that I know and that I think are really good analysts are pushing Bijan Robinson as the RB1 in the in fantasy this year. And I don't think that's completely off base. Now, I don't know if Saquon Barkley is going to, get injured and miss most of the season. I doubt it, but I do think that there's a chance, a really good chance, that he misses some time. And if he misses time, the best 1-for-1 skill set fill in the offense, and I know they have A.J. Dillon, but that's Will Shipley. He's a pass catcher. He had 2 seasons with over 30 plus catches in college. And when you look at the profile, similarly to, Malik Washington, just at a different position, he profiles as a very new age running back. Like, the size is, not what you would expect out of a typical bell cow, 5'11", 5'10", 205 pounds ish. He was a 4th round pick out of Clemson, but really good speed, really good burst. And if he gets the opportunity in this offense, and again, I should have mentioned it at the top, but when I'm targeting stashes, a lot of times I'm targeting situations too. And this situation for a running back, we saw it last year. Now, Saquon's ungodly talented, the most talented running back in the league, arguably. And he just found a great situation. And we all saw what happened last year. If Will Shipley gets the opportunity to take some serious snaps with the Eagles, with that offensive line, I'm not saying he's going to be Saquon Barkley, but I'm saying he's going to be pretty darn useful to your fantasy team. So what are your thoughts? I know we've talked about Will Shipley a little bit, but what do you think of Will Shipley as a stash?
Yeah, I like the Shipley call for, if we want to boil it down simplistically, 2 main reasons. We have Saquon Barkley taking a ton of touches. Well, I guess 3 main reasons. Saquon Barkley taking a ton of touches, this offense still being, a run-centric offense with a very talented offensive line, so a good situation around him. And Kenny Gainwell is gone, and that was the stamp of approval. That was the big stamp of approval because they liked what Kenny Gainwell brought in that role. They phased him out as Will Shipley was brought in, and now Gainwell is no longer with the team, and he's the guy. He can be the third down and, long down and distance 2-minute drill guy to spell Barkley, have a little bit of a role with him active as well. So I like this a lot.
All right. This one I also had down, and then I switched to another player, but Kyle Monangai. So tell us about why Kyle Monangai is one of your stashes here today.
So it's no secret that the Chicago Bears really wanted a running back in this draft. Yeah. They tried and they tried and they tried. And you wanted Travion Henderson. I wanted Luther Burden. You got Luther Burden and I got Travion Henderson. So it's interesting how that worked out for our respective teams.
Yeah.
But eventually the Bears said, all right, let's take Kyle Monangai. And I know he's a 7th round pick that gets everybody, but I believe we've seen enough for Roschon Johnson to know that he's mid. I believe we've seen enough over the course of his career from DeAndre Swift to know that while he could have a good season purely off the opportunity, that he's not one of the most talented backs in the NFL. This is not what Ben Johnson is used to working with. In fact, he did work with DeAndre Swift and he shipped him off because he didn't really fit with his scheme very well. And that's when the whole Montgomery Gibbs started occurring and things worked a lot better. And there's a theory among people who are better at watching film for running backs than I am that Kyle Monangai might be a better fit for Ben Johnson's system than DeAndre Swift. But the point being, he's incredibly cheap. Look, his athletic metrics aren't gonna blow you away, but I was actually pretty impressed with what I saw on film for not testing very well. When you go back, it doesn't look like he's as slow as he ended up testing at. He's very decisive. He seems like he has, pretty good vision. And that was one thing. Remember, the Detroit Lions Hard Knocks was a big knock on DeAndre Swift. Didn't know what holes to hit. He wasn't running with confidence. And if he can address those things in the way that Swift has had trouble with in his career, then Monangai is going to be seeing playing time. It's all about whether or not he can get the pass blocking down and be trusted. But with a sturdy frame, 90th BMI, 5'8", 211, I don't think he's going to have any problem picking that up as long as he's willing to get in front of a body.
Yeah, I love this call for all the reasons that you mentioned. And if only, and I put this out on Twitter, so go follow me on Twitter at Seth_DIEWOLD. Go follow Matt Babbage on Twitter at Babbage_Matt10 as well. So if only we had a season where Ben Johnson had DeAndre Swift on his team. Oh, wait, we do. And that was 2022. And let me tell you exactly how Ben Johnson used DeAndre Swift when there was minimal target competition, to say the least. The only other running back of note on the roster was Jamal Williams, and I'm going to get to him in a minute. DeAndre Swift ranked number 42 in snap share amongst running backs that season, number 51 in opportunity share, but number 10 amongst running backs in targets, number 25 in red zone touches. He was very, very efficient, number 8 in true yards per carry, number 10 in yards per reception. But Jamal Williams was the guy who dominated the carries. Jamal Williams ranked number 7 amongst running backs in carries with 262. And he was the running back seeing the majority of the red zone touches, the majority of, hell, even targets. He ranked number 67 in, or no, I read that wrong. Jamal Williams was not seeing any targets at all. He only had 16 targets. He was number 67 amongst running backs. So you see that there's a clear split, and Ben Johnson was using DeAndre Swift as a pass catcher and Jamal Williams as a rusher. Well, who doesn't project well as a pass catcher? Kyle Monangai. So Kyle Monangai, I'm not saying the roles are going to be exactly the same, but I am telling you that we do have some evidence that would suggest that Ben Johnson doesn't necessarily trust DeAndre Swift to run the ball in between the tackles. That's not his forte. He's a much better as a pass catcher, much better in open space. So I think that, and if your theory is correct, that Roschon Johnson is just not very good, which pour one out for me, because I was very excited when the Bears took Roschon.
Me too.
I was a big Roschon fan. If Roschon's not very good, then Kyle Monangai is going to get some opportunities this year. So I love that call. And speaking of opportunities, we talked about opportunities. I'm going to talk about the two Baltimore Ravens running backs. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Justice Hill. And again, stashes a lot of times come down to targeting situations, opportunity, and the Ravens run the ball a lot. I'm not breaking any news to anybody. They ranked number 2 in the NFL last season, 33.4 attempts per game. They were only behind the Philadelphia Eagles in that category. And according to our lads' depth chart, Justice Hill is the immediate backup to Derrick Henry, and Keaton Mitchell is ranked as their RB3. Justice Hill last season averaged 4.9 yards per carry and had some games where he finished as a top 10 weekly running back. So he paid off last year, even when Derrick Henry was mostly healthy. Week 4 against Buffalo, week 15 against the Giants, he was a top 10 running back. And Keaton Mitchell, who I'll put up his slide here right now, Keaton Mitchell averaged 8.4 yards per carry, which is ridiculous. Again, short sample size in 2023, and he tore his ACL in 2024, or I think leading into or late in the 2023 season. Apologies if that's incorrect. And that kept him out for most of 2024, but he should be completely healthy coming into this season. But I will admit that he's probably more likely to get injured than Justice Hill is. But I like both of these guys as a stash, because if anything happens to Derrick Henry, again, apparently he's Superman and he just never gets hurt and always rushes the ball 300 times every year. But if anything happens to Derrick Henry, one of these guys is going to, well, they might even split 50-50. I don't know. But they're going to get a ton of volume in an offense that loves to run the football.
Love it.
What are your, okay. Gotcha.
Sorry, I was quick reading an article. I just found out my next player's dad played in the NFL, and I got a little distracted by that. But perfect thesis, and I love kind of coveting the old with Justice Hill and the new with Keaton Mitchell along in there. I think they're both good targets, and if you can't choose between the two and you have the roster space, I can see, throwing both out there. At least let the summer go on too and see what Keaton Mitchell can do. Preseason looks are actually going to be pretty big for him with somebody who had such an explosive beginning and then coming down with that injury and then struggling, towards the next year to get caught up with things. So Keaton Mitchell could have a big summer, get back into that number 2 role, and then you can just cut Justice Hill. And then if Keaton Mitchell doesn't do anything in the summer and no news, maybe you can cut ties with him then if you're looking for a different stash. But love this look.
All right. Let's move to your next guy, who is also, it's no secret that I like this guy pre-draft. It's Oronde Gadsden. So tell us about Oronde Gadsden, a tight end, the first tight end that we're going to bring up tonight.
Oronde Gadsden II to you.
The second.
I just found out that his dad played in the NFL. He was a receiver. He played for the Dolphins. And the big news note that's hit lately, and I joined you after convincing me to be in on Gadsden, especially at cost. And when he went to LA, we thought that's a pretty good fit. He was still going really late in drafts. He's still going really late in startup drafts. And it's essentially a free shot. And, maybe to go with what you're doing, maybe toss Conklin in here too, as I think if Gadsden doesn't hit and is a true, dud in year 1, that Conklin actually could have a really good role within this Chargers offense. But we're going to focus on Gadsden, who is being coached by Andy Bischoff, the Chargers tight end coach, who is also the Ravens tight end coach when they turned Darren Waller into a tight end. And shout out to Andrew Cooper, Coupe Fiasco on Twitter for dropping that little nugget. But as of right now, the Chargers have been very impressed with his performance. It seems like he's going to get some real shots to be competing for playing time this season. He's a behemoth of a man, Seth. No wonder he started off as a receiver. He's 6'5", but he's 243. And so he transitions to tight end his second year of college after getting, barely any run as a receiver. Immediate 970-yard season on 61 receptions and 95 targets, 6 touchdowns for Syracuse, a 26% target share. That's a emphatic breakout for the first year at the position. So this might be a slow burn just because he's only played the position for 3 years. He's going to the NFL level. I think it's a good thing is for his career that he's paired up with such a good blocker in Tyler Conklin that he's going to be able to learn that part of the game. And that's going to be all the more important towards the back end of the season when it could be Gadsden getting the targets now that he's potentially lived up to that. It could be more of a taxi squad play if you have one of those, just because the tight end position is generally such a slow burn. It's a lot to ask for Gadsden to be active and in consideration for your lineup in year 1. He's a 5th round pick. He's a tight end. Those things just add to the unlikelihood that he's going to start in any sense of the word in year 1. So I'm not going to be surprised when he duds out, but has a couple of spike weeks, especially if Tyler Conklin misses time. But I am stashing him wherever I can, particularly when I have that kind of safety net of a taxi squad of people that I don't really have to keep on my roster, but I can kind of reserve, if that makes sense. So I'm targeting both because I think Conklin is going to be a little bit more active this year, but I think Gadsden could be in a really good position to take over that role at the end of this year and next year. You're muted. We did it. 25 minutes.
Dang it. Oh, well. We'll leave it in. F it. We'll do it live. That's what this isn't live, that we're pre-recording this, but I love Gadsden. That. I think the audience knows if they've been watching. He was one of my favorite tight end prospects in the draft. And yeah, I think the situation's great. I think the possibility of him being the starter is not hard to imagine with just Tyler Conklin and Will Dissly in front of him. So, and the tweet that you brought up from Andrew Cooper, the tight end guru, I'm looking at the tweet right now. Reminder that Chargers tight end coach Andy Bischoff was the Ravens tight end coach when they converted Darren Waller to tight end. And it says Chargers see similarities between Oronde Gadsden and Darren Waller. Now, does that mean that's going to come to fruition? No, but that's a good sign. And the fact that they don't have much at the position speaks to that. So this next running back is, again, I think the situation could be good. And this is a little bit of insurance, especially if I have Breece Hall on my team. It's Isaiah Davis who plays for the Jets. And Isaiah Davis was super efficient last year. He averaged 5.8 yards per carry last season. We know that this Jets team is going to lean heavily on the running game with Justin Fields. They've been very weird, at least early on in the offseason, about how they're going to utilize their running backs. Now, the theory on this channel is, well, why would the head coach who's coming in to try to reset the culture tell the media, yes, we're going to use Breece Hall on 72% of the snaps, and then we're going to bring in Braylon Allen to spell him, especially on passing downs. And then Isaiah Davis will mix in at the goal line some. But here's a spreadsheet chart of exactly how we plan on using our running backs. No, he's not going to do that. Of course, he's going to encourage competition. Doesn't matter where you're drafted, because that's what good coaches do who are trying to come in and, I don't know, change a broken culture in the New York Jets. I'm not saying it was completely broken. I don't know what the situation is, but if he's trying to set the tone, that's a great way to set the tone, is all I'm trying to say. So Isaiah Davis, again, great profile. He was drafted a little bit later, and we know Breece Hall's been hurt before. So I'm looking at the situation and going, it's not crazy to think that Isaiah Davis could get some opportunities, especially if one of these running backs gets hurt. What do you think?
You got to be targeting one of them. But I
Yeah.
like how much cheaper Isaiah Davis is. We saw a similar level of effectiveness from them both, i.e. they both had skill sets that when they got the opportunity took advantage of. And it does seem like Braylon Allen fits a little bit more into he's a little bit more AJ Dillon than he is Alvin Kamara, if that made any sense. So he fits more into the pure runner kind of backup archetype, whereas Isaiah Davis kind of is more of a, third down pass catching, gadget kind of weapon that you can bring in. I don't have a lot of words today, apparently. Needless to say, I think the backfield is good to target, especially with the ecosystem that's currently being built in New York, and how cheap Isaiah Davis is compared to the others makes, him worth a shot. We used to say, what was the old trope with the Belichick running backs? Just always take who's the cheapest.
Yep. You never know. You just never know. All right. Tell us about your next guy. And this is, I think, the undrafted guy you were alluding to at the beginning of the show.
Yeah. Somehow 71% of people in sleeper leagues are rostering Jacory Croskey-Merritt. Good luck finding stats on this guy. That was one thing that I found.
Why do you think the graphic is what it is on this stretched out player shout out to Player Profiler, but I usually pull up a PFF graphic here on the YouTube channel, and I couldn't find anything on PFF, like, for real. I looked up, I tried to find his rookie profile. I'm sure it's out there, but when I looked up his name and I made sure I spelled it right, nothing was popping up. So
no,
again, sorry to interrupt, but that's why we have a terrible looking stretched out graphic that makes the Player Profiler page look bad, which is almost impossible to do.
I think I don't know how, but Sports Reference doesn't have anything. ESPN doesn't have anything. I don't think Arizona's team website has anything. I don't know where his stats went, but I've seen his film retroactively, of course. He also wasn't undrafted. He was a 7th round pick, but at 729, like, you might as well be undrafted.
Apologies.
But 5'10", 206. So he's not small, He's a pretty big guy. He plays a little bit bigger and tougher than he is on the height weight. He's got the ability to lower his shoulder down. He's explosive. He's got 95th percentile burst. Ran a 4.52, so it's not blazing, but it's also not bad. I mean, we've seen guys like David Montgomery run like 4.6s and be fine. So he enters into a situation where I've liked Brian Robinson for a couple of years, but man, does he stinks. It's
wow.
I just gotta call it what it is, man. He's just not that good. Like, he's a good goal line.
We were so in on him too last year, just based on the opportunity he was probably going to get, and he did get the opportunity.
He did get pretty good opportunity. I really would have loved for it to be better, but there's a reason why it wasn't better, because 29-year-old or 28 at the time year-old Austin Ekeler was much better in both phases of the game, but he had some injury issues. And enter Jacory Croskey-Merritt, who has a little bit of both. He's more athletic than a Brian Robinson. He's not really more of a goal line back, but he plays a little bit more in between, where he's obviously going to be a better pure runner at this point in his career than Ekeler from what we've seen from Ekeler the past couple of seasons. He's not going to be a better pass catcher than Ekeler, but he's going to be a little bit of at least on par with what Brian Robinson can do. I really need to get used to how to approach this camera on the skinnier view. He's not far away from getting touches. Brian Robinson has injury history. Austin Ekeler has injury history. Brian Robinson has effectiveness issues, and Austin Ekeler had started to struggle with fumbles lately in his career. So there's a lot of things going on, and he is in a fragile situation. He's incredibly cheap, and he's in an incredible offense and a very high-powered, high-scoring offense. And for those reasons, I am in.
All right. I'm also in. I like that. I feel like we've done a lot of agreeing. We might have to do an episode that is bent toward us disagreeing. Maybe we make some bets like we do sometimes during the show. And maybe, I don't know. We'll have to workshop this. I've had this idea all afternoon, and I don't want to give up on it now. Let's move to the next player, Dante Thornton Jr. And this guy's interesting because, to be honest with you, and I have to be honest, I was not a big fan of his tape. But the issue that we have here is that he's taking first team reps. And when you look at the Raiders depth chart and the situation, there's not a lot of competition. Yes, they took Jack Besh. I know they have Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, but there is absolutely a world where this guy is starting for the Las Vegas Raiders this season, or at least taking a significant amount of snaps on the outside, which is probably where he projects to play. And when you have Chip Kelly coming out and singing the guy's praises earlier, I think in May or June, there's a chance that this guy plays. There's a chance that he's available on your waiver wire. Maybe we're a little bit late to the party here, but this is also a guy too, and all of these guys really on this list, that if you have a trade that you think is close to fair, and you see one of these guys on your opponent's roster that you're making this trade with, just say, hey, just give me Thornton, just give me Monangai, and we're good. It's one of those chips that, could pay off in a big way. That's not going to cost a lot. And to be honest with you, I don't love the player as much as Chip Kelly does, apparently, but I think he's worth taking a shot on if he's available and your league mates aren't paying attention to him, because I have to acknowledge that the upside is definitely there, and he's exactly what I'm looking for in a dynasty stash. So what are your thoughts, Matt, on Dante Thornton?
It's free real estate. I don't know if you've ever seen that video. Go look up It's Free Real Estate if you haven't. It's a really funny video, but it's literally free. It's free. It's a free wide receiver for you. And you hit the you could really just boil this take down to he's free and he's getting first team reps. That's about it. Because I agree. I was not the biggest fan of the talent. He was not someone I took super seriously going into this process. And then when I went back and started looking at the film afterwards, I didn't really love it. But in fantasy, all that stuff doesn't really matter if you're going to get opportunity. And particularly when we talk about stashes and dart throws, really the question that we're asking is not who's the most talented, but it's who is going to get opportunities, who has that pathway to opportunity, whether it's from being in a fragile situation, whether it's being in a shallow situation where you're a rookie somehow getting these first team attempts, like Thornton, or, you're just super talented and you're going to rise above the ranks, or some combination. It's all about getting to the opportunity. And when you're presented with that so early on, we have to pay attention to it, because we also have that bias that is when we see it, when preseason comes, we're going to be enamored, and guys like him are going to be rostered. So you need to have it now before it's put in front of everybody's face, because once it's in front of everybody's face in an actual game, even if it's preseason, the price of the brick is going to go up, and it's easier for you to be the bag holder in that situation, because at the end of the day, he probably isn't going to be that guy, but nothing like a little quick pump and dump. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And there's an element of that to this as well, as it very much like a stock. You're trying to find players, those back end of the roster guys. Can this guy accrue value? Is this guy just going to lose value? Then I don't really want to stash him. I want guys that can increase their value, sometimes significantly so. Let's talk about your next guy. It's Sean Tucker. And I'm interested because we might disagree here. I want to hear the case for Sean Tucker. And I know it's a stash, so I'm not going to be too harsh, but I'm not a big Sean Tucker guy.
I was kind of shocked when this was my takeaway, actually, when he was when you really just put your mind off and you just make decisions and you make one just with your gut, and then you go, I didn't think I liked Sean Tucker like that. But I do. And a lot of it is because of Rachaad White and what happened towards the end of the season, where he was basically put on a shelf. And it's not that he was put on a shelf to kind of end the regular season. That extended into the playoffs, and he was really losing touches in the playoffs as well. And even to the tune of Sean Tucker getting 8 carries, in week 17. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't have White's page up, but I think he might have out-carried Rachaad White in that game, or it might have been close, but he certainly has been more effective than Rachaad White. So last season, he led all running backs qualified in true yards per carry with 5.7. He had a 6.2 actual yards per carry. He had 7 yards per touch. When you look game by game, I mean, he was hitting 5 yards per touch no matter what, week in and week out. He's hitting explosive runs. He's had at a 3.3 yards per route run, 12 yards per reception. It is a small sample size with the number of targets that he got, but we also have on record in week 6 a 14 carry, 3 reception, 192 yard and 2 touchdown performance. And we're seeing Rachaad White with Tampa trend one way. Sean Tucker may be trending the opposite way, passing ships, because who's up for a contract at the end of this season? It's Rachaad White. And I don't think Tampa is going to want to bring him back, especially with what they've had to do to keep guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Baker Mayfield together. And you have a guy like Sean Tucker who's been hyper effective. I would not be surprised if Rachaad White is a trade candidate this year, especially if he continues to struggle and Sean Tucker continues to thrive.
Yeah. To your point, in week 17, Sean Tucker had 9 touches, or either 9 touches or 9 opportunities, either way. 9 touches, and Rachaad White had 7 touches. So 6 carries and a catch for Rachaad White, 8 carries and a catch for Sean Tucker. And in that week, not that they were, either one of them were successful, but 5.4 fantasy points for Sean Tucker, 4.4 fantasy points for Rachaad White, in a matchup that should have just been great for a running back. I know we're talking about backup running backs here at that point. Bucky Irving was the guy, but also I completely forgot that Sean Tucker finished as the RB1 overall in week 6 against New Orleans when he saw 14 carries, 3 targets, 192 yards, 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, I guess you've convinced me. The profile's good. The efficiency was good last year. Not much of a pass catcher, which is always going to limit the upside. But hey, man, I think you could do worse than Sean Tucker. And we all know, we've been wrong about Rachaad White. And I think they're going to use Rachaad White a little bit this year, but I could absolutely see Sean Tucker eating into that role. I could see that. All right, this next one kind of hurts. These next couple names actually kind of hurt me because these are prospects that I actually really liked. But we're going to talk about Malachi Corley first. And I get it. He was horrible last year. Malachi Corley, I think the lasting image that I have of Malachi Corley is when he dropped the ball. I can't remember what game it was, but he did the drop the ball before he crossed the goal line, which would have been his only touchdown of the year. But he did not score a touchdown that season. And anyway, his snap share was going up towards the end of the season. In week 13, he saw almost a 60% snap share. And when you look at what the Jets have at wide receiver, it's Garrett Wilson and a lot of Tyler Johnsons, Alan Lazards. Like, they don't have much in the way. They almost need a wide receiver like Malachi Corley to step up. And I get it. They have Justin Fields, so the amount of targets in the offense are likely going to go down because Justin Fields hasn't been healthy and he does what a mobile quarterback does. He doesn't really throw the ball a ton. He hasn't thrown more than 370 passes in a season. And in 2023, where he threw 370 times, played in 13 games, I think he was on pace to be like somewhere number 16 or number 17 in pass attempts in the NFL that season. So again, I don't usually like stashing wide receivers on potentially bad offenses in the Jets because the Jets could definitely be an average to below average offense this year. But we're looking at the situation, and we're looking at a wide receiver who not that long ago was taken with the first pick in round 3. And yes, does he still have some work to do in terms of his route running? That was always going to be the issue. And that was always the concern is, can he develop as a route runner? Because if you remember was it Western Kentucky? Or where did he go to school?
Western Kentucky.
Okay. He didn't really, his ADOT was really low.
Oh, he was all yak.
Yeah,
they literally called him
part of the
yak
appeal.
God.
Which was part of the appeal, which you would think like maybe the Jets figure out, okay, maybe we can use this guy like Deebo Samuel and line him up in the backfield and find a way to manufacture him touches. And if that happens, then you're going to get some return on your value here. But what are your thoughts on Malachi Corley? Is this a good stash to make in Dynasty, or should we be looking elsewhere?
I think it could be. So the one thing is that Aaron Glenn from New York is going to foster a mindset because he's with Detroit. He's going to foster a mindset of, okay, Malachi Corley excels at yak ability, getting the ball in open space, making something happen. Let's utilize that. All right, let's draw up some plays to utilize that talent. Because the one thing that the previous Jets coaching facility had no capability of doing was maximizing their players' talents and building a system to maximize their players' talents. Detroit quite literally built their franchise to what we know it today from that. Jared Goff, getting guys like Jameson Williams involved, David Montgomery getting paired with Jahmyr Gibbs, and that type of offense, it all works so well for the individual talent in the room. If they take that same thing to New York, Malachi Corley should be at least of more value than he is now, and someone we kind of consider as a flex depending on what the usage looks like.
All right, this next one hurts me, but I think this is a phenomenal one to, we're not going to end with it. We have one more, but Jermaine Burton was a guy that I was hyping up big time. And then when he was taken by the Bengals in round 3, I was even more excited because outside of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, this team could really use a wide receiver 3. But tell me why you believe Jermaine Burton is worth stashing in Dynasty.
So for one, the Bengals still haven't really done anything with their receiving core after Burton. So it's Higgins, Chase, Yoshivas, and Burton. Yoshivas hasn't really broken the mold and gotten involved, and it's really a role issue. He doesn't really work on the field with Higgins and Chase, but Burton does, and Boyd did. And we go back to the college tape, and you and I both love the film that he put together in Alabama. And, having a 71st percentile dominator rating in college while being in Alabama with all of those players, it's why he broke out so late, but he needs to get his attitude in check. Like, he needs to get life figured out. He needs to get his head on straight. That's the only thing that's preventing him from being great. That's what prevented him from participating really much in his rookie year. He didn't get a lot of camp time. He was in trouble. And he had a period in weeks 8 through 11 where, at weeks 8 and 10, he had over a 40% snap share and a near 50% route participation. That fell off in week 11. And then after the bye, he went back to basically playing no time at all. So it looked for a minute. I mean, he had 3, 5, and 4 targets and 4 red zone targets in total across that 3-game stretch as well. So it really started like he was getting to that point where, okay, that he's got it together. He's starting to rise. And then it all came crashing down. But, he's working with, I don't remember I think he was still their receiver coach last year, TJ Houshmandzadeh. But if not, he is this year. And, he's had a clip, from minicamp talking about, just, keep your head on straight. Like, if you could stay out of trouble, you could be great. So it seems like he has the support of the organization. If they're doing one thing right in Cincinnati internally, they're not paying their players, but at least they are believing in them. So if they can keep that belief system around him, if they can, if he can just overcome that and stick to it, I think Burton, can be a smash this year.
Yeah, it's certainly not a talent issue. This is purely a character issue, and to me, an opportunity issue in the offense, because they have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but this is also an offense that's going to throw the ball a ton, as was evidenced last year. So this is also a team that could really use a wide receiver 3. I like Yoshivas a lot. I like his profile, but Burton to me is clearly more talented, has more natural ability as a route runner and a wide receiver. And everything, I mean, it seems like he's saying and doing all the right things right now, but a lot of it just depends on, can he keep doing that? And I think the Bengals offense with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, it feels like they have some, or should have some pros in that locker room. And I'm not a Bengals fan, so I don't know anything about these guys. So maybe they could be the worst role models ever. I don't know. But TJ Houshmandzadeh seems like a classy guy that would have some really good things to say to a player like Jermaine Burton in terms of fostering him along. So it's all going to depend on that, because I believe the talent's there. It's just going to be a matter of, can he put it together off the field, and can that translate to on the field play, because that matters in the NFL. And we're seeing it play out, or we saw it play out with Burton last year. And so hopefully he's past that, and hopefully he can contribute in a meaningful way. And if he does, this is a smash. This is easily one of the more upside plays that you can make in Dynasty. And he's free, so why not? My next player is Dyami Brown. I'm going to put him up now. The Jags paid this guy $10 million. And I think Dyami Brown lost a lot of steam when the team drafted Travis Hunter, and I think for good reason, but he's clearly the wide receiver 3. And if Travis Hunter does play more defense than we might think, then it's probably going to be Dyami Brown who's going to be benefiting, and the offense should be much improved. Again, I know Liam Cohen looked like a doofus when he said Duval, and some of your league mates, it's just like when Dan Campbell said we're going to bite their kneecaps or whatever. I don't care. I think he's a hell of a play caller. I actually think that was a really good hire. It was weird how it happened, but I think that's actually a really good. He would have been on my radar for the Bears if Ben Johnson would have fell through. Like, I would have preferred him over Mike McCarthy. We know what Mike McCarthy is at this point. Liam Cohen, I think, is a really good coach. So I think that they're going to have a plan for him. I know it's the Jaguars, so we're trusting, maybe this is a big leap of faith because the Jags are not the most buttoned up organization out there. But with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, with his defense likely going to be bad again this year, Dyami Brown could see, a decent target share in this offense. So again, what are your thoughts on Dyami Brown? Because I was kind of surprised to see him where he was in outside of the 20th round in Dynasty Data Labs ADP.
Yeah, he played really well in his role in Washington. I think my issue with it, if I have any, is if he couldn't break out in that situation in Washington last year, where is he going to do it? And they were passing a lot in Washington. They really only had Ertz and McLaurin, and yet, he couldn't really get it done. I do see the talent there. I do, particularly as you said, if Hunter plays, a little bit more defense than we think or anything like that. But I like the call. It's hard for me to disagree really on any of these late round stashes because the value is so cheap, and it really is all about that 5th percentile, outlier outcome of the upside that person can bring to the table. And that case is very palpable with Dyami Brown. So, I mean, I'm probably not taking those shots as much as you are, but I still want some exposure, in best ball and things like that, especially this season and in, some dynasty leagues as well.
Yeah. And also, I don't even want to talk about it. And I don't, part of me doesn't even want to put that juju out in the world, but if anything happens to Brian Thomas Jr. this year,
yeah,
like what the hell are they going to do?
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Right. You would think Dyami Brown would be a
Travis Hunter get 12 targets a game. He'd be getting the Malik Neighbors treatment.
Yeah, man. We were talking about before the show how much insane exposure I have to Travis Hunter this year.
You would love that, huh?
Well, I was drafting him a lot when because we had a hunch, right? We had a hunch that he was going to go high in the draft and that he was going to be used more as a wide receiver. And yeah, I just was like, why not? I'll do a bunch of these $5 drafts. Yeah, I'll take Travis Hunter in the 11th round or whatever. But now, even in the 4th or 5th round, I'm like, yep, this is best ball. It's all about upside. We whiff on 4th and 5th round picks all the time. This is one of the more talented players I can remember. So, yeah, Travis Hunter to the moon. If anything happens to BTJ, but we don't want anything to happen to BTJ. So, but I might financially benefit from it if it does happen. So, just don't want anything bad to happen to him. But anyway, just apologies for that. Any words of wisdom for the people, Matt Babbage, before we end the show today?
Download Fast Draft. I still don't have an official slogan or pitch that I'm supposed to give you, but it is an incredibly unique way to draft. It is a best ball-ish format. It's a new spin on fantasy best ball. That's the way I'll put it. And as the headline says, you draft fast. From their smaller contests, which take, anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes to complete, to their new rabbit contest, which I believe is nearing to be full, which takes only about 15 to 20 minutes as opposed to about an hour for an underdog draft. So use code DRT when signing up for Fast Draft on your first deposit for a match up to $50. That is promo code DRT.
Good spokesman. Well, the link will be in the description of this video, so it'll be down there if you want to use our promo code. That would be great. And until next time, thank you for watching. Nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers. Whatever part of your day you are in, make it a great one. Morning, afternoon, or evening, or who knows, maybe you're in another dimension and you're watching it that way. I'm not sure how that would work, but I suppose it's possible. It's hard to rule it out.
Anyway, a new way to end the show.
If you are from outer space and you're watching this channel, I'm sorry that this is what you stumbled on YouTube. I don't know how it's possible, to be honest with you, that you would stumble on a Dynasty Roundtable podcast episode on YouTube, but we're glad you watched, and click the like button. Maybe subscribe before you take over the planet. That would be great. So anyway, I think I'm just going to shut up now and end the show. Thanks for watching. Be good, everybody, and we will see you later.